They say some moments haunt you forever. I used to think that was just something people said in books or movies, one of those dramatic lines that made everything feel more poetic. But now I know what it means to be haunted. It's been 2 years since that night. 2 years since everything inside me shifted, quietly, painfully, and never quite settled back. I remember the smell of the rain that day. It had just started to fall. Soft, steady, the kind that feels like it's trying to wash something away. I was in the kitchen, barefoot, wiping down the counter like I always do when my thoughts start to get too loud. The kind of loud that doesn't come from the outside world, but from inside, where your regrets live. Where your what-ifs start whispering. My daughter Leah was upstairs, laughing on the phone with one of her college friends. Her husband, Daniel, was helping me bring in the groceries. Just a normal day. A Saturday, I think. But don't they always say that? That the worst moments in your life never send a warning. They just show up in the middle of ordinary. He handed me a bag of apples. I reached out to take it. And for a second, just a second, our fingers touched. And it should have meant nothing. But something in the way he looked at me made my chest tighten. Like he saw something no one else had seen in a long, long time. I didn't say anything. Not then. Because what do you say? Thank you for seeing the woman I forgot I was? I should have laughed it off. Walked away. Told myself I was imagining things. That it was just the loneliness talking. Just the aching silence of a marriage gone cold and a house that only comes alive when the kids visit. But I didn't walk away. And he didn't look away. And that was the beginning of the end. You ever experience a moment where everything in you says, this is wrong? But something else, something just as loud, says, but it feels good to be seen again. Yeah, that was me. That was us. The kind of mistake you never plan. The kind of closeness that creeps in slow, like water under a locked door. And by the time you notice the flood, it's too late. I locked eyes with a man who was never meant to look at me like that. My son-in-law. And what I did next still haunts me. Subscribe to Heartfelt Tales Unfold, where silence becomes story. And every confession echoes deeper than you expect. I'm 52. Not old. Not young. Just somewhere in between, fading into the background. I wasn't always like this. I used to be the kind of woman who laughed loud in restaurants, danced barefoot in the kitchen, made people feel warm just by walking into a room. But over time, slowly, silently, something shifted. Not all at once. Not with a bang. Just a gradual dimming. Now I clean dishes that barely get used. Fold clothes that no one notices. Smile at a husband who doesn't look up from his book. We don't fight. We don't kiss either. We coexist. He reads. I clean. We pass each other like ghosts. And maybe that's what hurts the most. Not the silence, but the fact that it's normal. Leah, my only daughter, is 28. She used to be my shadow, my best friend. But now she's married. Busy. Focused on building her own life. Which is exactly what I raised her to do. So why does it ache so much? She married Daniel. Daniel. God help me. He's 31. Charismatic. Kind. Too kind. He opens doors. He remembers birthdays. He looks people in the eye when they talk. He listens. Really listens. When they visit, the house changes. Leah's laughter fills the rooms like sunlight. Daniel moves through the kitchen like he belongs there, offering to help, making conversation, noticing the smallest things. One day, he asked if I had changed my hair. I hadn't. But no one had asked me that in years. That's when it started. Not with a touch. Not with a word. With being noticed. The moment they walk in, the house feels alive again. And for a few hours, I feel like a person, not just a role. And Daniel, he never crosses a line. He's respectful, warm, observant. But sometimes, when I speak, I see something flicker in his eyes. Something careful, curious. Like he's wondering about the woman behind the apron, behind the quiet smile. And I let him wonder. Because it's been so long since anyone has. I don't flirt. I don't plan anything. But I do wear lipstick when they come over now. I cook things I know he likes. And I tell myself it's just hospitality. Just manners. But in the quiet corners of my mind, I know it's more than that. I know I wait for the sound of their car in the driveway. I know I glance at my reflection before I open the door. I know that when Daniel smiles at me, I feel something I thought I had buried. My daughter is glowing. Her husband is thoughtful. And I am invisible to everyone except the one man I should never want to be seen by. That's where I was, a 52-year-old woman in a quiet house, longing for something I couldn't name until Daniel looked at me and made me remember I still existed. It was a Saturday. Warm, bright. The kind of day people post about. The kind that makes everything look fine from the outside. We had a small barbecue in the backyard, just the four of us. Leah, Daniel, my husband, and me. The grill was going, the drinks were cold, and the laughter came easy, mostly from Leah. She always brings the joy with her, like a bag she never forgets to pack. My husband was sitting in his usual spot, same chair, same book in his lap. Half listening, half reading, fully somewhere else. I've stopped trying to reach for him. It's like calling into a well that never echoes back. Leah was buzzing around, talking about a work promotion. Excited, animated. Then her phone rang. She checked the screen, smiled, and said, "I'll be right back, Mom." She disappeared into the house, still talking, already lost in another conversation. And just like that, it was me and Daniel. He was by the grill, flipping chicken, holding a beer, looking so at ease. And I was sitting beside a bowl of corn on the cob, pretending to adjust napkins that didn't need adjusting. Then he said, "You've got a peaceful home." I smiled. A small one. The kind you give when you don't want to ruin a good moment with the truth. I said, "It's quiet, at least." He looked at me. And this time, he really looked. Not like a son. Not like a stranger. But like a man trying to understand something. Like he saw someone beneath the surface. The woman I used to be. The woman I had nearly forgotten. We talked. Not about anything dangerous. Not yet. Just aging, marriage. How fast time moves when no one's really paying attention. I told him how Leah used to beg me to paint her nails and make pancakes shaped like hearts. He laughed and said she still asks him to do both. I asked how marriage felt. He paused. Then he said, "It's good. She's wonderful. I just think sometimes I wasn't ready for how much of yourself you have to give up." I didn't respond right away, because I knew exactly what he meant. I had given up pieces of myself over the years. Some I gave freely. Some I didn't realize were gone until it was too late. And that silence, that shared understanding, it sat between us for a long second. Then he looked at me and said, "You know, sometimes I wonder, if things had been different." My heart stopped. He wasn't smiling. His eyes didn't wander. He just held my gaze, steady and quiet. And then he said it. "If things were different, I'd have met you first." The world didn't spin. The birds didn't stop singing. The food didn't burn. But something inside me cracked. It was so soft, so slow. I almost didn't hear it, but I felt it, because no one had said anything like that to me in over a decade. No one had made me feel wanted. Not just appreciated. Not just thanked for the meal. Wanted. I didn't know what to say. So I said nothing. I just sat there, staring at the steam rising from the grill like smoke from a fire I hadn't meant to start. And somewhere in the distance, I heard Leah laughing into her phone. That was the moment. The one I should have shut down. The one I should have forgotten. But I didn't. I remembered every word, every pause, every glance. And later that night, lying in bed beside a man who hadn't touched me in months, I closed my eyes and replayed a voice that didn't belong to him. That night I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling like it might have answers. But the only thing I could see was his face. Daniel's. His words didn't echo, they lingered. Soft. Still. Like something sacred I wasn't meant to touch, but did anyway. If things were different, I whispered it to myself like a question, like a sin. And the guilt, it came quick. Hot. Sharp. Like a slap to the chest. I turned to look at my husband, his back to me, already asleep, just like every night. He snored softly, hand curled under his pillow, face relaxed in a peace I hadn't felt beside him in years. We share a bed. We don't share touch. Or conversation. Or presence. And it's not just the absence of romance. It's the absence of seeing. Of being seen. Noticed. Chosen. Daniel noticed me. And that was enough to stir something in me I thought had died a long time ago. I kept asking myself, what is this feeling? Is it desire? Is it need? Or is it just loneliness, dressed up as attention? It felt wrong, but it also felt like breathing again after years underwater. Is that what betrayal is? Because if it is, it doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it comes gently, with a smile that lingers too long. With words you didn't expect to crave. I wrapped the blanket around myself tighter. But it wasn't the cold I was trying to fight. It was the memory. The way he looked at me. Not with hunger, but with something deeper. Something I couldn't name. Something that terrified me more than lust ever could. I thought about the nights I'd walked past my husband, hoping, just hoping, he might reach for me. The times I put on perfume before dinner, not because anyone would notice, but because I missed feeling like a woman. I thought about every time I'd caught my own reflection and looked away, because I didn't recognize her anymore. And I wasn't sure I wanted to, but Daniel, he didn't look away. He looked straight through. Like he saw all the parts of me I tried to bury under chores and quiet smiles. And lying there, in the dark, I asked myself, is it betrayal to feel seen? To remember what it felt like to be wanted. Not for what I give. Not for what I provide. But just for existing? I didn't have the answer. Still don't. But that night, I held onto his words like a secret note slipped into my hand. I tucked it into my chest, pressed it against the ache that had lived there for years. I didn't ask for this. I didn't go looking. But when something starving gets fed, even crumbs feel like a feast. And somehow, even through the guilt, I fell asleep with a softness I hadn't known in so long. Not joy, not peace, just the haunting comfort of being remembered. It started small, subtle. The first time Daniel came without Leah, he said he was just dropping off a package she forgot. I smiled, kept it light. But inside, something shifted. A flutter, a flicker, a question I wasn't ready to answer. The second time, it was a casserole dish. The third, some papers she'd left behind. By the fourth time, we weren't pretending anymore. Not really. We talked. Longer than we should have. About everything and nothing. The kind of conversations I used to have when I was still someone's muse, not just someone's mother. Not just the woman who folds the laundry and refills the sugar jar. He asked about my favorite music. My childhood. My regrets. I didn't lie. But I didn't tell the full truth either. Because some things sound too dangerous when said out loud. There was a moment in the kitchen. I was plating food for Leah, knowing she'd pick it up after work. He reached for a fork. I reached too. Our hands touched. It should have been nothing. But it wasn't. The touch held. Too long. Just long enough. We didn't speak. Just stood there, palms still warm from contact, staring at a plate of rice like it might save us from ourselves. I pulled away first. Pretended I had something in my eye. He cleared his throat. Said he had to go. But the next day, he came back. Said the garden fence was leaning. Offered to fix it. I said yes. Of course I said yes. He worked quietly. Focused. Shirt damp with sweat. Sunlight catching the back of his neck. I brought him a glass of water. He looked up at me, shirt in hand. And I swear, time slowed. It wasn't lust. Not at first. It was the hunger to matter again. To be noticed. To be looked at like a woman. Not just a placeholder in someone else's life story. I stood there too long. Held the glass too tight. He reached for it, and our fingers brushed again. But this time, neither of us moved away. There was heat. Not the sun. Not the air. Us. He said nothing. I said nothing. But everything between us was loud. That night, I couldn't sleep. Again. I tried to pray. Tried to talk myself out of whatever I thought this was becoming. But desire is quiet. And patient. It doesn't need permission. It just needs a crack. And I had too many. And then, one rainy evening, he stayed too long. Leah was out of town. Work trip. Just 3 days. She kissed me on the cheek before she left, told me to rest, told Daniel to check in on Mom. She smiled like nothing in the world was wrong. And, maybe for her, nothing was. That evening, the sky turned gray too early. Thunder in the distance. The kind that hums in your chest before it even reaches your ears. Daniel showed up at the door with groceries. Said Leah told him we were out of a few things. It was a lie. A soft one. The kind you tell when you both already know the truth but need the excuse to keep pretending. I should have sent him home. I should have smiled, thanked him, closed the door gently behind him, but I didn't. Instead, I invited him in. Told him the storm might get worse. Told him to stay until the rain let up. We cooked together. Nothing fancy. Pasta, garlic bread, a salad we barely touched. And somewhere between slicing tomatoes and stirring the pot, the power went out. Just like that. A sharp click. Darkness. Silence. He laughed softly. I lit candles. The flickering kind that makes everything feel slower. Softer. Dangerous. We sat at the table. 2 glasses of wine between us. Barely touched. And for the first time in weeks, we didn't talk. Not because there was nothing to say, but because everything was already being said in the silence. The candlelight caught the edge of his face, the curve of his mouth. He was watching me. Not with hunger. With ache. I looked away. Back at the glass in my hand. Back at the flame that danced too close to what I was trying to hold back. Then he stood up. Walked slowly around the table. Stopped behind my chair. I could feel his breath before I felt his hand. And then, he touched my shoulder. Just lightly. But it undid something in me I had kept locked for too long. I stood. Turned. Met his eyes. He didn't lean in. He waited. Careful. Still giving me the chance to end it. But I didn't. Our lips met slow. Intentional. Not an accident. Not a slip. A choice. A quiet breaking. And when we pulled apart, we didn't speak. We just stared at each other, shocked by the stillness. He whispered, "Tell me to stop." And I didn't. I should have. I should have screamed it. Shoved him away. Opened the door and let the storm swallow him whole. But I didn't. I stood there. Breathless. Shaking. Alive. And that's what broke me most, not the kiss. Not the guilt. But how alive it made me feel. How alive he made me feel. Heavy silence. No breath. No music. Just the sound of 2 people standing too close to the edge and not moving back. I woke up alone. The bed was cold. The house was still. Too still. Daniel was gone. No note. No sound of the front door closing. Just absence. Thick and heavy like the aftermath of a storm you pretended wasn't coming. I sat on the edge of the bed, blanket around my shoulders, head in my hands. The smell of him was still there, faint. His warmth had barely faded from the air. But he was gone. And everything felt wrong. I wanted to believe I imagined it. That maybe it wasn't real. That maybe I had dreamed the way he touched me, kissed me, looked at me like I mattered. But my lips still tingled. And my chest. My chest ached like something had been ripped from it. The guilt came fast. Faster than I could breathe. It settled in my bones. Sour. Sharp. Then I heard her car in the driveway. Leah. Home early. Smiling, radiant, arms full of shopping bags and stories from her trip. She kissed my cheek, told me I looked tired. I smiled. Said I didn't sleep well. A small truth buried in a mountain of lies. She talked about work. About a new bakery she tried. About Daniel calling her every night, saying he missed her. And all I could hear was the blood rushing in my ears. Because he hadn't looked at me. Not once. He came in an hour later, quiet, casual. He kissed her forehead, called her baby, laughed at her jokes, sat beside her like nothing had happened. And maybe for him, nothing had. But everything had changed. He barely looked at me. And when he did, it was quick. Too quick. Like he couldn't risk what might show on his face. I felt sick. Actually sick. My stomach twisted. My hands shook. I spilled tea on the counter and cried while wiping it up, said it was from cutting onions. There were no onions. I couldn't eat. Couldn't sleep. Every glance they shared felt like a knife. And, still, I smiled. I smiled so hard it hurt. I started watching them. Not out of jealousy. Out of fear. Fear that she might see it. The space between us. The thing that wasn't there before but now took up every corner of the room. I hated him. I hated how easily he slipped back into her world. And I hated myself more. For letting it happen. For wanting it. For needing it. And then she sat beside me on the couch, her voice soft, her eyes shining. She said, "Mom, we're trying for a baby." And just like that, I felt the room tilt. Like the floor had vanished beneath me. She was glowing. Hopeful. Innocent. And I was a wound in her story she hadn't even discovered yet. The days after she told me, blurred. I wandered through the house like a ghost in my own skin. Touching things. Noticing things. Like grief had sharpened my senses. I ran my hand across the banister Leah used to slide down when she was little. Paused by the hallway where her laughter once echoed. Opened her old bedroom door, even though she no longer lived there. I sat on her childhood bed. Held one of her old stuffed animals against my chest. It still smelled like her, vanilla shampoo and something innocent the first couldn't name. Downstairs, I pulled out old photo albums. The ones where we're all smiling. Where everything looks right. I stared at one of Daniel. Standing beside her, arm around her waist, both of them beaming. And all I could see was the lie buried behind the smile. My lie. I hated myself for what I'd done. But even more, I hated how badly I wished I could go back to that moment and do it again. I kept walking. Room to room. Opening closets. Smelling shirts my husband hadn't worn in years. Holding onto fabric like it might stitch something back together. But it didn't. Because something had already torn. And I was the one who cut the thread. I stood in the nursery we'd started clearing out years ago for guests. Now it might become something else. A baby's room. A crib. Soft blankets. Tiny socks. And I wondered, what would it feel like to hold that child? To press my lips to its forehead, knowing I had broken the foundation that made its life possible? To watch my daughter become a mother, while carrying a secret that could destroy hers. I imagined Daniel rocking their baby to sleep. Reading bedtime stories. Kissing Leah on the cheek while she cradled their child. And I wanted to scream. Because how do you look at that kind of love and not wonder if it's all a lie? Was what we did a moment of weakness? Or the beginning of a rot that would one day reach everything? I thought about confessing. So many times. I rehearsed it in my head. How I'd say it. What I'd say. When. But each time I opened my mouth, the words caught in my throat like shards of glass. Because once they leave you, they don't come back. And so I said nothing. I can't undo what I did. But every time I hug my daughter, every time she calls me Mom with trust in her voice, I feel like I'm stealing something from her. Like I've taken a piece of her life that she'll never know is missing. I don't know what mercy looks like anymore. I don't know if truth is kindness or cruelty, but maybe silence is the only mercy I can offer now. Have you ever made one decision? One single choice that rewrote everything you thought you knew about yourself? Not a loud decision. Not the kind you scream about in arguments or confess in a courtroom, but the quiet kind. The kind that creeps into your bones at night and won't let you sleep. I did. And now I barely recognize the woman in the mirror. She looks like me, moves like me, smiles when she has to, but inside, she's not whole. She's holding pieces of something broken and pretending it's still beautiful. I ask myself every day, was it weakness? Was it selfishness? Or was it just loneliness? Disguised as courage? A longing to be seen, to be wanted, to feel real again. That's the part no one tells you. That sometimes betrayal doesn't start with lust. It starts with emptiness, with silence, with a hunger to matter again. And once you feed that hunger, even for a moment, it never stops whispering. So I need to ask you something. Honestly, gently, what would you have done? Tell me your truth in the comments. I'll read every word. Not to judge, just to understand. If this story pulled something from deep inside you, subscribe to Heartfelt Tales Unfold. This is where silence becomes story, where shame becomes language, and where your secrets don't have to stay hidden. Tap the bell. The next tale might echo something you've never dared say aloud. Some betrayals don't explode like bombs. They bleed slowly, staining everything we love in silence. They live in the way we hold back our words, in the way we avoid certain glances, in the way we hug a little too tight because we're afraid it might be the last time we deserve to. I thought being seen was enough. That maybe if someone noticed me, if someone touched me like I still mattered, it would make the years of emptiness worth it. But I forgot what it means to truly see someone else, to see their innocence, their trust, their love, and to betray that even quietly, even once, is to light a match inside the home you helped build. If you're standing on the edge of something that feels too sweet to be wrong, I beg you, step back. Because some desires come dressed in kindness, but they leave dressed in regret. And if you're still tempted to judge me, don't. Just ask yourself, what would you have done if you'd felt invisible for years?